right, all right. Happy Monday. Here we are for another industry update. Mr. Dammann, my co-host today. How are you?
Doing awesome, Brett. Good morning. Good afternoon, rather. Fast day.
There you go. Say something. I'm choking. I got to get something to drink.
All right. Well, we're going to be talking a little bit about institutional buyers today, right? Some of the impacts that might on the market. We have some, I think, some fun perspectives.
Yeah, we do.
On how the market's going, but I don't think they're all that inaccurate sometimes. So it just depends on how much of a conspiracy theorist you are.
Well, here's the reality. We got TikTok today, Sean. We're gonna cover a little TikTok. But before we do, let's always I like to start with the numbers, of course. What did we see this week, right? So if we're looking at residential numbers out of FMLS, we saw 1,266 new listings hit the market. My number that I just kind of pull out of the air that is not scientific by any means, 1,250 is normal. So 1,266, we're floating in the normal range, right? Is that kind of how you see it?
We are, but yeah, but some of the other numbers down there are another buyer frenzy going on all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden we popped with 1,500 pending contracts this week. We haven't really been riding that high. And I find it so interesting that the last year and now what's starting to the fall real estate season, you know, we're almost into fourth quarter, which is crazy. We're not seeing a traditional bell curve, are we?
We're not, but you know, we're also seeing, so this is, I believe, my 21st year in real estate now. And I think the first 15 or so, I spent the second week of August every year going, oh crap, my business is dying. Something happened, something's wrong. And then somewhere around the second week to third week of September, I go, oh wow, man, I'm glad it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And it's directly related to our school system. It's directly related to school. This is a very normal cycle to me that we see happening every single year in the land. People get back in their patterns
this year.
Like people get back in their routine somewhere around mid-September, and always plan your vacation the second week of August. That's kind of a good rule of thumb, I think.
Yeah, yet 1,500 pendings pretty strong. The closings was a little low this month, or I'm sorry, this week at 1,390. Typically we run 1,800 closings a week.
Right. So what was happening 30, 45 days ago?
Do what?
So what was happening 45 days ago?
Exactly.
The first week of school.
Yep. So just kind of know your numbers. We're going to put out on the Heart of Atlanta Facebook page a social media graphic you can certainly steal and pop out into your social media worlds that talks about the numbers and just kind of a weekly update, trying to get people in tune with these weekly numbers. If we look at them on a graph chart, you know, I always talk about the yellow and the blue line and certainly the red line, the closings and the new listings, right? It's so hard to tell, but we're certainly still selling more than we're putting on the market, which just means we haven't seen the end of the curve where we're moving back to a better market. You know, Sean, you mentioned a while back the term we're moving more to a normalized market.
Normalization.
Yeah. Normalization. Why don't you reiterate what that means?
Well, so we've been in an out of balance market for an extended period of time right now. And so the numbers have to shift back. And when they do, that doesn't necessarily mean it's catastrophic. It means the market is normalizing. It might take 30 to 45 days to sell a house one day. You might only get 97% of ask price one day. Yeah. These are not, you know, these are not signs of the market absolutely collapsing. It's just going back to what a traditional, more normalized market looks like. Yeah. And we've suffered from a lack of inventory. And this kicks all the way back to the Frank Dodd Act, kicks back to 2008, when builders had huge, massive chunks of land that they had bought and developed, and they lost it. And then they couldn't get financing. Even builders who were successful back then were having a tough time getting financing. And so we had this 2 to 3 year almost complete hiatus on new construction starts.
Yeah.
And we've never quite caught up with it. And even though inventory is, you look at a buyer seller market, you look at the metrics of the National Association of Realtors, which says if we took every house we have on the market based on an absorption rate, how long would it take us to sell them? And we know that they tell us between 6 and 7 months is a balanced market. And we're in a very extreme seller's market, less than 2 months of inventory. But interestingly, we've sold more houses this year than we did last year and the year before. So inventory is actually up. It's just the buyer demand is so great that we need even more inventory to keep up with.
So let's talk about that. So in business, we talk about leading indicators and lag indicators, right? And real quick, let me just show the lease part because I always do. These numbers are staying pretty stable. New lease listings coming to market, which I think is a good thing. I think the lease part of our world is going to thrive over the next 12 to 18 months because of the purchase part of our world. So if you're dealing with property managers or investors or that kind of thing, it's probably a good segment of the real estate industry to keep your eye on.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion to people on our call?
Yeah, please.
While interest rates are still so low, you can still make money on an average investment at a low interest rate. And if you have a real estate license and don't have personal properties that you own, you should think about the fact that what you do is how you build long-term wealth. You won't see it tomorrow, but I guarantee in 5 years, people are going to look back at these rates and go, man, I wish I could have locked in at that price, because rental rates are continuing to go up. And based on the conversation we're going to look at in a minute, I think that's going to do nothing but drive rental rates even higher. And I know personally, I see rental properties I've owned for years that I can raise the rent $400 or $500 a month and find 3 people ready to rent it tomorrow.
Yeah. The real estate's one of the biggest wealth creation vehicles out there.
Yep.
And like I said, this is not the sexiest part of our presentation when I showed the lease stats. And certainly it's not the part that gets most real estate agents excited, but I'm telling you, this is something you need to be in tune with as a real estate professional, because a big part of our purchase business could be investors if we knew the language and knew how to talk about it, right? So I'll leave it there. But Sean, where I was going is, in business, we talk about leading indicators and lag indicators. And an easier way to, or analogy to explain that is, the windshield of our car talks about where we're going, and the rear view mirror talks about where we've been. And a lot of what these statistics are lag indicators, where we've been, houses that are already under contract, houses that have already closed. So as a real estate professional, we're trying to get our hands around this crystal ball. So when we go sit at a listing table or we're consulting a buyer, we're telling them what 30 days down the road looks like, what 60 days down the road looks like. So one of those leading indicators is showings, okay? And Showing Time does put together reports. They put together a showing index report. And here is the US statistics, okay? So in 2019, and they use an index fund to create not exactly 122 showings, but that's their rating, if you will. In August of 2019, they gave that rating around showings 122.2. And then August last year was 63% more, hear the words, buyer demand than the August before. And I'm defining showings as buyer demand, right? It's loosely defined, but 199.2. And then they showed August this year in the US at a 10% decline from August of last year at 177.9, right? And this is the entire US statistic, just buyer demand, what you would read on the national news websites, right? So we start to scroll down, and Showing Time breaks it down into regions. So hang on, our pictures are in the way here. Our region is this South region report, right? If you look here, Sean, you can see we went up 53% from 2019 August last year, but we've seen less than a 1% decline from a year ago August,
Right.
which is not the same number as the US. And is that a good or a bad number? Highly debatable. But it just a smidgen, right?
Well, what's interesting about that number, as one of my coaches likes to say, could be good, could be bad, too early to tell, right? But we're on par with last August. And if we think back to last April, last May, last June, it was the late third quarter to mid third quarter when people started going back to see houses again. So we last year was that showing number compounded by built up demand due to COVID. This year, that showing number, it's just been a regular year.
Yeah. Well, look at these percentages over here. Plus 60, plus 56, plus 51. And all of a sudden, August is now minus 1%, which could speak to it's turned a little bit, right?
Well, I think what you have to do is go back a year retroactive, right? Because March, to me, I always think of my son's 21st birthday. Last time I went in public for 6 months last year, right? That's March 12th, right? And we had people not in there. And so look at March, April, and May. Look at, we're normalizing. We're not crashing. We're normalizing back into what
we're coming back to normal.
Should look like comparatively to the year before.
Yeah, for sure. And I still want to remind people that's a hot real estate market, and you should be selling houses all the way through the end of the year.
Yep.
In years past, you would certainly feel the bell curve and the slowdown after school started. This market's going to stay pretty hot through the end of the year, and we should all benefit from that. Any questions, comments from our viewers today? Thoughts?
Yeah, I think Mark has a really valid comment in here.
I didn't see the chat.
That normal has now shifted to busier than before COVID, which was a strong market. So we are in a busier norm, right now there's more happening in our market. This is a good problem compared to 2009.
Yeah. Mark, developed that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think COVID has shifted the way we think about where we live and how we live. So, and how and where we work fundamentally. So it's created this insane amount of additional demand that we didn't have before COVID. And it remains to be seen when that's going to go back down to a normal level of demand. Or is it? Is it going to take, I mean, it could take years to cycle through all the people that want to be in a different situation now that they can live anywhere and work anywhere, or now that they know they need a home office where they didn't have one before, or they need a schoolroom for the kids to do virtual learning. So it remains to be seen how long this increased demand is going to continue for. But to your point, it stopped going up, because for a while it was just, the trajectory was just way up. So now it's sort of like leveling off, but it's leveling off at a much higher rate than it was before. So compared to 2019, which was already, like for my market center, it was our best market center ever, year ever rather, for our market center. So if 2019 was the best year ever, and then 2020 blew that out of the water, and 2021 is on par with 2020, what do the next couple of years look like, right? So it remains to be seen when that is going to change, if it's going to go down, or if that's just the new normal.
Yeah.
The psychology of buyers has changed. It's like the world told everybody, go to your room and think about how you're living your life. A lot of
even
people
having a second home,
home,
right? Like having a second place to get away to that's drivable. So when you want to get away, you have someplace in the mountains or someplace by the beach that you can easily work from. So
I've been
yeah,
trying
it's
to buy
just
a lake
changed
house for almost a
fundamentally
year.
how we think.
Yeah.
Can't find one,
All right. So, Sean, tell me about your TikTok account.
Yeah. So, yeah, my daughter.
You can say non-existent. That's fair.
That would lie in the hands of my millennial children.
All right. So
But I'm excited to learn more about it today.
All right. So it's all over the news right now. There was I'm assuming he's an agent that filmed a TikTok and put it out there and created all kinds of controversy so that There's an article on Market Watch and an article on Inman about this guy's TikTok. So I think it's worthy of us. Let me make sure I got my sound on here. We should watch this TikTok and then let's break this down here. All right. So here he is, and I'm just gonna hit play real quick.
I've been a real estate agent for about 11 years now. And let's talk about the housing crisis. And let's talk about some what ifs. What if there was a company that everybody knew of to look for houses? And everybody goes on there and searches for houses when they're bored and stuff. And so that company, they just sit back and they just collect all the data. They just know what zip code is looking at what zip code and how much those people can afford. Everyone's looking at this one zip code and everybody seems to be able to afford this certain amount. And let's say that billion-dollar company uses that information to go into that zip code and start purchasing houses. Because the people that are selling their houses, even though they sell it for a little bit less sometimes than what the home could actually be worth, and they pay these high fees to this billion-dollar company, it's a convenience factor. So this company's scooping up houses less than what they actually could cost. And let's say that company, excuse me, Canoe, that company buys 30 homes within a 2-mile radius. And let's say the price is $300,000. So they buy all of these homes for $300,000. And then on the 31st home, they buy it for $340,000. Even though they know all of the comps. Because most people have to get a loan. And if you get a loan, you have to get an appraisal, which means the appraiser is going to look at what homes have sold in the area for that size and that price per square foot. So they're paying cash. They don't need an appraisal. Why would they pay $340,000 for this 31st home whenever they've only paid $300,000 for these others? Well, what that just did is create a new comp. So when they go to sell these other 30 homes, that extra $40,000 that you could say this one sold for $340,000 just made them $1.2 million off that one neighborhood, because they know from their research how much people can afford in that zip code. Weird. And let's say that then they're going to come in. They bought that home at $340,000 that still needs work. So they're going to come in and do the good old paint, spackle, and change the carpet and call it a remodel. So now we can sell them for $360,000. Because we know off of our data, that's how much people can afford. Wouldn't that be weird if a company did that? And then say that this company also starts letting you use their own lenders and their own title and escrow company and makes you write your contract on their.
All right. What do you think?
Well, I'm not much of a
What do you know
conspiracy theorist, but let me put on my thinking cap here, Brett.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't bring one to the table, but we'll go with yours.
yeah. So I'll tell you, the first time I heard of this concept was probably in Anaheim, California, about 4 years ago, when Gary Keller presented to us the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
And the importance of big data and how real estate is going to be run.
Yep.
Right. So
You're
why
correct.
are there so many institutional buyers out there? I'm not saying I'm a believer or not. I'm just saying.
Sean, as I was preparing for this, you're going back 4 years. Isn't this what builders did in neighborhoods? They start production at this price, and they run their own prices up as they develop neighborhoods. And is it right? Is it wrong? I mean, could iBuyers, I guess the question is, could they run the prices on the market? I think we all kind of agree at this point it could happen.
Well, I think yes, it absolutely could happen. And why do you think Zillow, well, imagine if there was a company that people used all the time to look at houses that bought the freaking software that we write our contracts in.
Yeah, they did.
Do you think they bought it because they're making money off of each contract? Or do they want to know the data for every contract every realtor writes in .loop? Right? They're literally buying the data. That's what Gary talked about with the Industrial Revolution, is it's powered by big data.
Yeah.
And also the only reason Zillow bought .loop is because they want our data. They want to see what we're writing in contracts. And by the way, contracts that have not closed yet are predictive analysis. They're a forward-thinking set of information.
Sure it is. Sure it is. So nonetheless, it's it's our moral and obligation to go out to our database and get in relationship with people so that we can protect our industry where this corruption or the, as Shar put it, the conspiracy theory, right? It's going to happen, and they're going to manipulate prices a little bit. Could this be the next downslide to the real estate industry? I'm not predicting that right now, but it's certainly a hot topic. So here's what's interesting. If you read, so this is Market Watch, which is primarily a investment website, right? But if you get to the story on Inman, the Redfin CEO who buys houses and Zillow, they started fighting back on the comments of this TikTok, right? And so much that, let's see where his comment was. This is untrue. We offer every homeowner a choice of cash offer or brokered sale, blah, blah, blah. Yes. However,
Really,
we
Glenn?
don't know the moral
Really?
character behind the scene. Yeah. So anyway, I find
Really,
it quite
Glenn?
interesting, and it's certainly industry specific and a hot topic in our world. Another thing I wanted to point out was the condo market. There's an article on the Atlanta Business Chronicle about metro area condos attract distinct demographics, and they start off talking with the Charles and Buckhead. And it's certainly specific buyers that are buying these condos. And I find this article very interesting. If I was a real estate agent that sold in a market that was heavy condominiums, or I find myself in conversations with people around condominiums versus townhomes versus single family, this is good information. Sean, what do you get?
Well, this was behind a paywall, so I didn't get to read the whole article earlier today. But I think, to me, condominium either is a lifestyle you're looking at for low maintenance, or it is a decision to buy into an area that you might not afford a single family housing.
Sure, sure.
Right.
So townhomes are certainly, it's almost like the entry product to more desirable areas that you can't afford the single family home into, and people are happy to pay it, right? Condos are certainly picking up the luxury market, and they're certainly picking up, it says here, empty nesters who are downsizing looking for spacious luxury properties, and younger, often first-time home buyers who see owning a condo as an entry into a high-priced market. So how do you take that information as a real estate professional and tailor that to your dialogue, tailor that to your marketing, tailor that to how you interact with potential people, so that they feel more comfortable, right? Like,
I think it's certainly a question you need to be asking.
Go ahead.
In a buyer presentation, it's a question that you need to be asking. We've all been in situations where we have, what do we like to say? We have buyers with champagne dreams on a beer budget,
Yeah.
right? That's a way that you can help with that. The other area this comes into, though, is, and this, I'm not saying it's exclusive to in-town neighborhoods, but you look at the future of real estate and you see higher density, right? We don't have any more land to build in town. And so higher density developments are things that builders are certainly looking forward to. They create the opportunity oftentimes for affordable housing, right? Where you can set aside a certain number of units that have to be sold to teachers, policemen, firemen, things like that, service people that work in the area. And condos are usually worth what the last one sold. The comping on them is easier because it's what did the last one sell for? What's the price per square foot? I think there's a little bit more risk that if the market turns, it's hard to differentiate one condo from the next. You're kind of tied into what the unit is selling for in the complex, rather. The complex you're selling in.
Absolutely. And if you are a condominium agent that sells high rise, you better familiarize yourself with what amenity packages look like.
Yep.
and understand what a luxury amenity looks like versus a you know, a starter amenity package looks like, because they're very different, right? Any questions on that? Because I think our market is really taken off with condos recently in a high way, because the single family pushed a lot of buyers into condo space that couldn't get them into single family space, or pushed them into townhomes. And it's certainly prudent of us to understand that segment of our market.
So when I look hyper locally, which is Decatur, where I'm sitting right now, I'll tell you the trend I've seen. The developers, it used to be, we started with really the town square was the first development right in downtown Decatur. And we had the Artisan the Artisan in Claremont were the two first luxury ones we had. But including our building where they built 320 units around us, the Arlo, which sits across the street from me. There's another development 3 blocks up the road from me. They're all apartments. The developers aren't building them to sell them. The developers are building condo grade apartments. I know specifically for this development, they financed it as condos. And when they finished the project, they turned around and said they changed their mind, they were going to do them as apartments. Which kind of feeds into the, you know, idea that there's some institutional buyers out there trying to control the rental market and create generations of renters by owning them.
You know, I was going over financials of one of our offices last week, and the leasing income spiked. And I think it just speaks to a lot of fact that there's probably a lot of people that are frustrated trying to purchase, that agents are putting them into leases for 6 months or a year to wait the market out. And the only reason I'm judging that is because I see that the leasing income went up. And it just speaks to a lot of things. But anyway,
there's that. I also think you have sellers who are leasing until the market normalizes, thinking pricing might come back down.
Yeah.
And I think
it's
there's
interesting, and that's what we talk about on this call. Sean, anybody have any questions or wants to poll the audience about what we're talking about today? Because it's kind of interesting stuff, and it starts with little TikTok, right? If you don't think social media has power, it does. All right. Nobody's got
I see
questions.
some of my brightest agents on my screen right now. I know someone has a thought.
Yeah. All right.
We'll keep our thoughts.
You
I
said
just
it
want
so
one of
well.
those hats like Sean has.
Uh-huh. There you go. All right, you guys. Happy Monday. See you next week. Oh, somebody said short-term rentals with HOA is a common question I'm getting. Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.